All right, guys, so this is the 2011 FRQ question number 6. I was asked to see if I could go over this with you guys, so I'll do that right now. Let's read the question. It says, let f be a function defined by f of x, which is equal to, it's a piecewise function, 1 minus 2 sine x for x less than or equal to 0, and e to the negative 4x for x greater than 0. First part says, show that f is continuous at x equal to 0. So this is actually a kind of easy problem, but you have to know what to do. If you want to show continuity at a point, remember you need to prove 3 things. That the function exists at that point, so f of 0. You got to show that the limit exists at that point, so the limit as x approaches 0, from the left and right side, of course. And then you want to show that step 1 and 2 are equal to each other. So step 1. Does f of 0 exist? Well, if f of 0 exists, I'm going to have to plug it into this one right here, right? Because that one's the one that say that x can equal to 0. So I'm going to put it in there. I get 1 minus 2 times sine of 0. Sine of 0 is 0. So that means that f of 0 is equal to 1. So there's the first part. So what I'm hoping for is that the limit is equal to 1 as well. So for step 2, I want to find the limit as x goes to 0 from the left and the limit as x goes to 0 from the right. Now, from the left side of 0, that means those are the negative values. So I'm going to have to use 1 minus 2 sine x because that's the function that deals with negative numbers. Notice e to the negative 4x is for x greater than 0. So I'm going to use that from 0 to the right, from the right side, because those are the positive values. So we already know that if I were to plug in a 0 into this, 1 minus 2 sine of 0 is just going to be 1. So that's good. Over here would be e to the negative 4 times 0, which is e to the 0, which is 1. So that means that the limit as x approaches 0 of f of x is 1. So step 3. I can say that f of 0 is equal to the limit as x approaches 0 of f of x. Okay, so show that that's true. There you go. So you can say, so f of x is continuous at x equal to 0. So we just have to do the 3 steps, okay, to prove continuity. Now, part B says for x not equal to 0, express f prime of x as a piecewise defined function. Notice they did say for x not equal to 0, okay? So that's important, okay? Now, it says express f prime of x as a piecewise defined function, and then find the value of x for which f prime of x equals to negative 3. Now, they did say find f prime of x. So, let me go over here, put B. F prime of x. So that's going to be 2 functions, okay? Remember, the first function was 1 minus 2 sine x. So if I take the derivative of 1 minus 2 sine x, in case you guys don't remember, 1 minus 2 sine x was one of the functions. The other one was that. This was f of x, okay? So the derivative of 1 minus 2 sine x, well, the 1 becomes a 0. You keep your negative 2. Sine of x becomes cosine of x, so it's negative 2 cosine of x when x is less than 0. Now, if you're wondering, well, wait a minute, Mr. V, up here it says x less than or equal to 0. Well, that's the part that I highlighted. Remember how they said x can't be equal to 0? So that's why they leave it out, okay? So x is less than 0. The other derivative would be a negative 4 e to the negative 4x, and that's for x greater than 0. Okay, so there's my derivative function. That's what they wanted. They said for x not equal to 0, express f prime of x as a piecewise defined function. So far so good. It says find the value of x for which f prime of x equals -3. So they're saying when does f prime of x equal to -3? So I have two functions. So let's find out when that happens. So according to this, when does -2 cosine of x equal to -3? Well, that means cosine of x would have to be 3/2, and that's impossible because remember, this can't happen, okay? And the reason why it can't happen is because cosine of x can only be as big as 1 and as small as -1. Remember, it's an oscillating function that goes as high as 1 and as low as -1. 3/2 is too big, okay? This is not possible. Now, -4 e to the -4x equal to -3. Well, I'll divide by -4, so I get 3/4. I'll take a natural log of both sides. So ln of 3/4. So this gives me a -4x equal to ln of 3/4. And divide by -4, so x is going to be a -1/4 ln of 3/4. Okay, so there's my, oops, I forgot to put that. There's my answer. So let me just reread this really quick. Find the values of x for which f prime of x would be equal to -3. Well, there it is. Okay, it's going to be that right there. All right, so part C. Now, just so you guys know, part C will not show up on your exam because that's an average value function, and according to the AP website, that's part of Unit 8. So you guys don't have to know Unit 8, but we'll do it anyway. It says find the average value of f over the interval from -1 to 1. Okay, so the average value is going to be 1 over b minus a, so 1 over 1 minus -1, okay, integral from -1 to 1 of f of x dx. But the problem is, let me just write this out really quick. I can't integrate this completely because at 0 it changes functions. So I'm going to have to write this as 1/2 of the integral from -1 to 0 of f of x dx plus the integral from 0 to 1 of f of x dx, because I do have two functions I have to do. So this will be 1/2 integral from -1 to 0 of 1 minus 2 sine x dx plus the integral from 0 to 1 of, what was it, e to the -4x dx. All right, so let's integrate. This is 1/2. The integral of this is going to be, let me write it this way. That's x minus 2. Now the integral of sine of x is a negative cosine of x, so plus cosine of x from -1 to 0 plus, now the integral of e to the -4x, so integral of e to the -4x dx, let u equal to -4x, so du is -4 dx, so -1/4 du is dx, so this would be a -1/4 integral of e to the u du. So 1/4 e to the u plus c, so that's -1/4 e to the -4x plus c. That's without limits, okay? But with limits, it is going to kind of change it around. So this is going to be a -1/4 e to the -4x from, what is it, 0 to 1. Let's continue. It says 1/2. All right, so I plug in a 0, I get 0 plus 2 cosine 0 minus, plug in -1, I get -1 plus 2 cosine of -1. Okay. And let's do plus. Actually, hold on, give me a second. This would be right here. And that goes here. If I plug in a -1, I get a -1/4 e to the -4 minus a -1/4. So that's a plus e to the 0. All right. So 1/2 integral of 0 plus 2 cosine of 0. So cosine of 0 is 1. Yeah, that's 1. So this will be a 2. And then plus 1 minus 2 cosine of -1. Now, I don't know what cosine of -1 is off the top of my head, and this is supposed to be a non-calculator problem, so I'm just going to leave it alone. Okay, I'm not going to do anything special with it. Just leave it there. Minus 1/4 e to the -4 plus 1/4. Okay, because 1/4 e to the 0 is 1, so 1/4 times 1 is 1/4. What can I combine here? 2 plus 1 is 3, and 3 plus 1/4 is 3 1/4. So 3 1/4, that'd be 12, 13 over 4. So it's 13 over 4. That's combining 2 plus 1 plus 1/4 minus 2 cosine of -1 minus 1/4 e to the -4. Let's just distribute this 1/2. So that's 13 over 8 minus cosine of -1 minus 1/8 e to the -4. And I think that's going to be your answer. So I'm just going to put a box around it, and we will be done with question number 6. So hopefully that helps you guys out. If you have any other questions, please let me know. Have a good night.